Today we're making some vintage style Halloween crafts. Keep watching. I'm Brandy and this is Making It My Own DIYs. Welcome. We're going to use some tight bond quick and thick. A little block we're going to use for support. Little miniature haystacks and little miniatures of whatever sort you might want to use. We'll use moss, a little bit of foam mushrooms, some flowers from my stash. I'll use 2 of these ribbons. And these are some paper cutouts from a carnival pack that I have been crafting from and loving recently. These are the ones that I chose for this set. I have done a project already with some more pieces, and I have one more project to do with these. This is a cheese box that I thrifted, but you can use a round gift box if you would like. Here are my measurements, just for your information. Where the bottom overlaps is going to allow a flat spot to make a base. If you're using a box, you might not have this, but you can make your own support using a wood block. Just going to use some long-lasting glue with a little quick drying hot glue. It's going to hold that in place until I get a strong seal with the permanent. I'm going to use some pieces that I have thrifted. I use these as supports to add dimension to my projects, and I thought this would be a good place to use it to help give me support on the bottom of my box to keep it from rolling. I'll use a little bit of this, same process, hot glue, and a little bit of that tight bond to go on the bottom. I would like to thank my friend Kendra from Late Night Creations because she's the one who introduced me to this glue, and it is wonderful. She uses it, she recommends it, I love it. I'll use some of this ribbon that I got on clearance, and I will use enough to wrap around the box and glue it in place. If you want to paint your box, you can do that. If you want to use gift wrapped on your box, if you want to use stain or whatever you want to use on your box is totally fine. I'm going to use the bottom as my starting place, and I'll cover up everything with this ribbon. So I think this is like a 2-inch ribbon probably, and it is wired, but the wire doesn't really matter in this project, so it's totally up to you. Now, sometimes at Christmas time, you can get these cheese boxes as like the base for gift sets, like that have bath bombs or the ones that have meats and cheeses. So just consider, what you might already have in your stash that you can use, because it's really important with us living on a budget that we still have nice things that we can create and craft with, but we don't have to spend a lot of money, right? We don't want to put ourselves out of a house and electricity and stuff like that. So once we get the bottom established, I'm going to roll this back over on itself and hot glue it in place. This is just going to give it a nice flat, even seam, and we won't have any of those little strays coming out and, making a mess on the bottom. Right around the inside, I'm going to go around with a little hot glue and just press that down. I do have a finger protector on, and I do recommend that when you're using hot glue, you do try to protect your hands as much as possible because they can burn worse than you would think. They are really, really hot. Even on a cool temperature, you can still be burned, so just be very careful. I'm just going to keep going along and just wrapping this over the edge. This happened to work for me, but if you have a box and your ribbon fits perfectly, you won't need to do this step. If your ribbon is not big enough to do this step, you can take a permanent marker and color it, or a paintbrush and a little bit of black paint. I love the cream and white. I think it's going to be good with this carnival theme, and I think it matches nicely to what we have going on in our cutouts. I'll use my satin ribbon, which is smaller, maybe 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to put it down. A little hot glue, same process. We'll start on the bottom. Starting on the bottom will allow your seams to land on the bottom, and you won't see anything on the top. It'll be nice and neat. Just going to add a little glue at a time. Press it into place. Again, protect your fingers. I'm not a very good example on this particular day. I was so excited about the project that I just threw caution to the wind. You know how it is sometimes. pressing it down, rolling around, and I go. You can certainly use your type bond here if you would like, but it's really not needed to have a very strong hold. When it comes to fabric on wood, my experience is that hot glue will do the trick. I'll press that into place. I've had people ask me too what type of hot glue I use. I prefer to use Gorilla Glue, and I just use the Gorilla Glue sticks. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I have a large variety of viewers here, and lots of people are viewers but not subscribed. So check to see that you're subscribed so you don't, and hit the little notification bell, of course, so that you don't miss whenever I put up new material. I would also love a comment if you would like to leave one. Big thank you to my channel members whose contribution helps me with coffee and business. We appreciate it. Now, instead of painting the inside, I've decided to use a little bit of scrapbook paper, and it's just cream and black, and it is in polka dots. And I'm going to cut this out. You can put your box right on top of your paper, use a pencil, trace it out, cut it just inside of your trace line, and it should give you a fairly good fit on the inside of your box. And then you can just trim up where you need to. Using a little bit of black chalk paint that was already on a brush from another project, I'm going to go right on that inside because it's really hard with a piece like this to get exact measurements. So I did the best I could, but there are still a couple of places where you could see the wood underneath, and I don't want that peeking through. So I'm going to cover it up a little bit. What do you think about the combination with the plaid and the polka dots? I really like that. I painted the back of my box black. And now I'm going to use the ribbon on the inside as well. So we are essentially sealing this box in this plaid ribbon. I'm going to again use the bottom as my starting place because that's where I also want it to end. I don't want to see that seam anywhere. I'll push that edge to the back of the box, and then with little strips of glue here and there, working fairly quickly, I am going to press this into place. I kind of roll it with my hand and press, roll and press, roll, and because you want to sort of flatten it out so you don't have wrinkles and you don't have spaces that are not attached to the box. Hot glue, again, works great for this, but you're welcome to put this in any way that you like if you want to use your type bond or your glue or whatever you have, whatever type of adhesive you want to use, or double stick tape, whatever you're using for your particular needs. This will work. Also, if you want to use strips of scrapbook paper, you can do that as well. Press, press, press until we get back to our point. You can trim that off and glue your edges down. Now I'm going to go around the inside with my glue, right around the lip, and press this into place. Right where the edge of my box is and the edge of my ribbon lies. It just so happens that the measurements were really close, really tight in this project so that everything lined up nicely. It was like kismet this day. It was wonderful. Don't you love a good creative, crafty flow day? I love them. And I was in the flow in this project. It's something about those paper cutouts that really got me inspired with these projects. Again, I will be doing one more. I've already done one that I will link. And I hope you enjoy them as much as I do because I love a good vintage project for any holiday or any time of year, really. Vintage inspired. It's not precise. I'm just going to press this into place. You can use hot glue around the edge and put it in place if you want to, but I just like to give you options. I'm going to use my little smoother here, my little tool, and I'm going to press this in place. You can use a credit card or whatever you would like to use to flatten yours out. You're not really going to see it under a pattern paper, but it holds it great. Now our box is all sealed with our ribbons and our paper, and we can move on to the inside if we would like. Using black or antiquing wax, we're going to go around the edges of these paper cutouts because they are a white on the edge. They're like punched out or cut out of paper, and paper is generally white. So I don't want my edges to be white. I want my edges to look a little more aged. Totally up to you whether or not you do this. Do you see the difference that it makes? I usually use antiquing wax for this, but for this project, I wanted to give you an example of how you can do it with paint. Just adding a little bit, dabbing a little bit off there. If you're wondering why I have that ribbon round over there, these make really good templates if you're cutting out random size circles. So you can take your leftover spools when your ribbon is gone and pull those circles off, and you can use them again. And you can also use the inside of those spools, the little round sections, in other projects. And I have done that before too. So we're talking about recycling and milking every cent out of your dollar. It's really important these days, isn't it? Okay, going around, making sure everything looks good. You can see the difference. I can see it. It's subtle, but I really like it. And then we're going to do the same thing with the little girls that I chose. I chose two little girls who were trick-or-treaters. Very, very cute. They're excited. They're very Victorian and vintage looking. I'm going to go around all those edges. Now, if you have a piece like this that's intricate, go ahead and grab a paintbrush and just take most of the paint back off and go over those sections. You can also use a paint marker or a fine tip Sharpie and go in all those sections if you would like. It's going to be totally your choice and what's going to work for what you have. Now, at one point, these sold out. I'm going to double check and see if they have any more. If they do have more, I'm going to link it. If they have something similar but not these, I will link that as well for you. I'll take it's like a little fake off-brand Target Jenga block. Jenga? Really? Ginger block? And put a little glue on it to give us a little bit of lift. We want to have a little bit of support on there and a little bit of dimension. If you want to put everything flat, you totally can, but I love the shadows that are created by giving a little bit of lift. It just looks a little more natural to me. Optional, of course, is going to be moss. Now, I have these moss mats that came from TEMU. You can definitely use the moss that you get from Dollar Tree and just use a little bit of glue and put it down. You might not want to use hot glue because you could possibly burn the fingerprints off your hand. So I suggest that maybe you want to use a little bit of your Titebond if that's what you're using, or whatever type of a thick adhesive you have, and just press it into there. This is going to create a little bit of a hill or a yard or garden for the little girls to stand in. It's also going to create a support for them and anything else that we decide to use to decorate the inside of this box. I have not bought anything new recently. It's been about a month since I've been in Dollar Tree, and I know that prices are going up, so just be very, very careful about trying to look back through your stash and see what you have and think about maybe something that you could take apart, and maybe you don't love it as much as you used to, and now you want to give it new life, and this is the perfect time to do it. I'll add some hot glue in here once I decide where I want my girls to go, and then press her legs into that. Notice she's not flat on there. She's about an inch away from the house. I'm going to use just this little block. This little haystack happens to be the perfect dimension to hold this in place until she dries in place. And then I'll add the other little girl. I'm going to add her closer to the edge. So we have little step backs from the front to the back, or from the back to the front. So the house is at the deepest depth, and then the first little girl is a little bit closer to the front, and then this little girl is the very closest to the opening of the box. Gives you a lot to look at. You can also add lights in your projects if you would like. I do a lot of lighted projects, but in this one I decided to leave it alone and let you decide how you would like to do it yourself. So I used a block on this one behind the pumpkin to hold that in place, and you can paint that black if you would like. You don't have to, but black does help it sort of disappear into the distance. And then I'll take my little bats, and they're so intricate that I'm going to have to use a pen on those to shade them. And I'll use this, this is like a glass marker, I think, y'all. And I'm going to color this and let this dry to be the support for this little bat. And you can also use these types of pens to color on there to give you some shading when you have really intricate pieces. Once it's dry, I'm going to use some hot glue. I'll just turn that one sideways and see how I'm doing here to cover up the white on this one. And the two bats that I'm using are two different style bats. This one is a little more of a gothic look, and the other one looks a little more lifelike. but it is mixed media, so we're going to do it a bunch of different ways, aren't we? I'm going to press that into place and then decide where I want to put this little bat. And I thought maybe right here on the outside of the box would be a good spot for her. Thank you so much for coming by my channel, for supporting me, for helping my channel to grow. My goal is 100,000 subscribers by Halloween, and if you could help me do that, it would be wonderful. Most of my viewers are not subscribed, so, you know, stick around if you would like. I enjoy having you here. We have a great time in the comments. Everybody generally is kind and helpful and supportive, so I would love to have you here. It's one huge making it my own family. These little pieces also came from Dollar Tree. They're called moss rocks or moss stones. They have foam on the inside, so they're easy to cut down to whatever size you like. Adds a little bit of kind of variety to the moss. I'm going to press that in place right on top of that moss. We're mixing it up. I like the look of it. Now I've got some TEMU branches in black and brown, and I also have some I've recycled from other projects and found at the thrift store. These pieces can be cut down. They're partially wired, and then the outer branches, or the pieces that come away from it, are plastic, so they can actually be cut, you know, with scissors if you wanted to cut them with scissors, the smaller pieces. And that way you can really stretch it and use, on smaller projects like this, one branch for the whole project. I'll trim it down into whatever sizes, you know, that I like for my piece and whatever looks right, and I encourage you to do the same thing. If you don't have these pieces, you can always go get some sticks from the yard, right? That's the easiest way and most affordable way that you could possibly do it. Just grab some sticks from the yard and really make this one your own. I press the stem down into the moss. It helps stabilize it, and the glue holds it in place. To give some dimension to the flat branches there, oop, there's my big head. I'm going to add a little hot glue, turn one to the side, right where the tree forks, and then support it. Just got my little utility knife in there to hold it in place until the glue dries. While I go on to the next piece, decide where I want that one. And then I add some glue and press it down into the moss. If you need to add a little bit of glue, if you're going to have something extending over the outside, you can add a little bit of glue to the ends of the branches and stick them to the outside of your box. And then I decided I really wanted one back behind that tree. So since it's not on there flat and it's lifted away from the box, I had plenty of room to poke that little stem down in there. So out of my little bucket of thrifted and recycled pieces, and leftovers, of course, I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue, and we'll use these again. I thought that the yellow would be nice for fall, so it also mimics a little bit of what's going on in that house in the little girl's dress, that little golden kind of orangey yellow dress that she's wearing. And then I'll add these in the background, just, you know, wherever you like them. Doesn't have to be symmetrical, and you could use one piece if all you have is one. If you've got little pumpkins you want to use, you could certainly do that too, but the little girls are holding their jack-o'-lanterns up, so I didn't put any pumpkins in here. I'll take these little picks that I got from, I think I got them from Dollar Tree. I've used them before and pulled these out of another project, but they're just painted over. They're like the little Easter mushrooms, and I just painted them brown and cream to look a little more realistic in my last project. So pulled them out, and I'm using them again for this project. Be sure you add a little hot glue once you decide where you want it to stay, where you want those mushrooms to grow and live. This came from a set from Dollar Tree, the little garden gnomes section. Yeah, it was in a little thing with some gnomes. I'm going to use that right in the front. And then this came off of a thrifted piece that I think it was like a Target wreath set, like a flat wreath set. I don't know. But it came with these little felt pieces. And there's like a pumpkin and a ghost. And I thought that the words would look really good with the coloring and the style of this project. So I just put the ink on the outside and glued it in place. I like to make my projects my own, and I encourage you to do the same thing. It doesn't have to be cookie cutter to everybody else's things, right? And I don't think what I do is normal crafting. I think it's a little more outside of the box. Um, that's how I like it. That's how I want it to be for you guys. I really, crafting has made such a big difference in my life and how I feel about myself and my confidence. And I want you guys to feel that too. You know, you guys and gals, I want you to feel that too. I want you to feel that sense of accomplishment and really love something that you make that nobody else has. You know, you're the only one who's going to have that piece. I hope that you like this one as much as me. Again, I've already done one project, which I will link for you, with cutouts out of this same pack, and I have enough to do one more project. So be sure you hit that notification bell once you've subscribed so you don't miss anything when I put it up on my channel. I've got lots of Halloween. I've been doing Halloween projects since the summer. The Halloween has been more popular than the fall that I've done, and so I'm going to continue to do that because it seems like that's what you want to see. I want to give you what you want. I want you to check out this rectangle below for more, and as always, thank you for stopping by. I'll see you soon. Bye!